we'd all be thrilled out of our minds.
Doug, it's been a while. I haven't heard your comments on a lot of things, but I get, we use Goldilocks a lot, but kind of not too hot, not too cold at 175.
Yeah, I'm with Jason. I think this is a good report from the perspective of the Fed. I mean, this is our first read on data in the second quarter, and the components of labor demand, hours, employment, average hourly earnings are all modestly down, which is what the Fed would like to see when it has restrictive policy in place. But it's by no means the labor market falling off a cliff, and we know from the weekly UI claims, as Stephanie mentioned, there's no evidence of recessionary conditions. So this is what they'd like. They'd like to see some evidence that monetary policy is slowing things down a little bit, but without creating a hard landing. And so this is a good report from that perspective.
Yep. So, Stephanie, while you're here, what do you think of Apple?
Oh, well, it was better than feared. And I mean, there was like this pile-on of negativity over the last couple of quarters. You had so many downgrades. You had numbers coming down. So expectations were really, really low. But China was better than expected. Services was phenomenal, 14%. Gross margins in services, 74.3%. So I think you got the bad news out of the way. The guidance was pretty decent. You got a $100 billion buyback, biggest in history. So I think that the setup going forward, this is 7% of the S&P 500, Joe, in terms of the weighting. So I think you're going to see a lot of chase in the next couple of weeks.
A couple quick points, Joe, on the what's happening. Rick is right to see the Fed funds futures market is basically a glorified bond market is really what it is. It's just a precise thing. But July, a little bit more back in play from where it was at 44% this morning. September, over 74%. It had been below 50% before the Fed meeting. Powell came in with a little more dovish commentary. The other thing is kind of picking up on what Doug was saying. One of the things I watch pretty closely is the duration of unemployment. And we're not seeing that go up. The average time that a person spends on the unemployment or being unemployed is down actually week to week. It's 27 weeks and over the duration of unemployment. So there is churn going on in the market, but that's not creating long-term unemployment.
Yeah. Rick, earnings are nice, jobs are nice, but, traders, nothing they like more than the prospect. I mean, that we might get, they just mainline that easy. They do. They just mainline that easy money. It's like you had to ask them. I mean, the world. You used to say that an asteroid's going to hit. Remember this joke? An asteroid's going to hit the world tomorrow, but the markets rallied when they thought the Fed might cut. I mean, right?
Yeah, or flight to safety, Treasury yields will go down, right? But I'll tell you what, all joking aside, here's the issue I see. First of all, I can't believe Jason, considering his past, is happy about wages going down. I would think that wages going up is a good thing, and I would think that when I look at California, and I know this data doesn't support it specifically, but it does generically, that when you go to the bottom of the food chain, the bottom of the wage food chain, and you raise the minimum wage, it's going to trickle through everything. Diesel fuel prices being high, it's going to trickle through everything. But here's my point. Look at pre-COVID wages year over year. I'll go backwards in time, okay? In February of 20, it was 3.0. In January, 3.1. In Dec of 19, 3.0. You get the picture. Here we are celebrating it's under 4% at 3.9. And listen, when minimum wage is at the bottom, so it's not going to necessarily boost these numbers, but it's going to put a floor under these numbers. So to celebrate this, I think A, is un-American, and B, I think that wages aren't going to necessarily cooperate in the same way because, once again, long and variable lags. Listen, I don't think we're going to get back down to pre-COVID levels, and that really is some of the same types of issues you have to think about when you think about sticky inflation.
Hey, Jason?
Can I defend myself against the charge of being un-American? What you care about are real wage gains.
You're at Harvard. I don't know. No,
you care about how much wages are growing relative to inflation. And there's Goldilocks there, too. You see too high a wage number. That's just a signal you're going to get more inflation. That's not going to be good for anyone. Higher interest rates and the like. Wage growth of this type is sustainable. We could actually do a little bit higher than this and be sustainable. Get inflation back to target. Have interest rates come down. Because, by the way, people don't just care about wages. They care about how much they're paying on their mortgages. So yeah, I don't want wage growth to be 0, but I don't want it to be 1 million either. And this whole report is heading us towards a sustainable place. Of course, it's one noisy data point on what has been a long and arduous process that we don't know how it'll end.
Now, Doug, I can either go to you or I can try to start something between Steve and Rick. But I better go to you. Because
I
can't
can't
believe-
Doug rather than me.
I mean,
you were sitting here like shaking
Rick-
your head and.
Let Doug talk.
All right, go ahead.
So,
Doug.
here's the
Doug,
thing.
Guy.
Go.
So,
We might still have
let's
time.
put
Rick.
aside. Let's put aside Jason's loyalties and just sort of look at the numbers. The wild card here is productivity. What happened in 2023 is you got this huge burst of productivity, and that cures a lot of ills and helps disinflation. It was concerning to see it moderate in the first quarter data, and this wage number will only make sense in retrospect when we see what's going on with the productivity numbers.
I was going to say, Joe, talk about